So, you know how sometimes the tiniest nice things you do can turn into the biggest amazing surprises. On a dirty road in an old mountain town that's getting run down, a lady around 50 spots what other folks just ignore. A little donkey no one wants. The people there laugh when she gives 50 cents for the skinny animal, saying she's silly for worrying about lost pets. She takes him out to the wild spots, just hoping to give him a cozy spot to live. But this small donkey has a special trick. Heck knows ways up the mountains that no map ever drew. Each day he shows her spots folks forgot about long ago, where hidden things sat quiet without a sound. What begins as plain old kindness turns into something super cool. The lady her neighbors once teased is going to find amazing riches she can't even picture. But what old secret might a donkey worth 50 cents really know that could flip everything upside down? Before we get back to it, say where you're listening from. And if this tale grabs you, be sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something really neat saved just for you. Dorothy Camden always thought the best parts of life show up in the plainest ways. Standing in the tight animal area behind Miller's feed shop, seeing the small brown donkey squeeze against the wood boards, she got that usual pull in her heart. The same one that made her save tons of lost animals through the years. The donkey probably didn't weigh over 200 pounds. His ribs stuck out under a dull fur from not being cared for. His ears hung down like the whole world sat on his thin back. When Dorothy stuck her rough hand through the fence, he raised his head with careful hope, dark eyes showing a smartness that seemed way too deep for such a small animal. "No one's gonna buy that little guy," yelled Jake Miller from behind the counter. His voice had that tired, give-up feel of a guy who'd seen too many tough times. "He's been here 3 weeks, eating more than he's good for." Dorothy had come down from her little house just to get food for her chickens, not to take home another animal to feed. At 54, she lived on a tight money plan, making her dead husband's small life money and her sometimes work as a helper last as long as she could. Frank had died 3 years back, and she'd gotten used to the calm beat of life in the mountains. Just her, the chickens, and the huge wild land around her tiny home spot. But there was something about this donkey that talked to her in a way deeper than talking. Frank would have got it. In their 27 years married, he'd never asked why she brought home hurt animals. A rock expert by job and a kind person inside. He'd helped her fix up lots of animals in their small barn. He'd been the one to make the bigger chicken house when she'd saved a bunch of hens from a bad farm. He'd been Theon to make a brace for the cat with 3 legs that still wandered their land. And he'd been Theon to quietly pay the animal doctor bills without ever making her feel bad. About the cost, the thought of Frank's rough hands softly holding a hurt little bird made Dorothy's eyes wet. He died in a mine crash, a fall-in at the copper mine where he'd worked checking safety. The sad joke wasn't missed on her that a guy who'd spent his job stopping those crashes had fallen to the same danger he tried to stop. The money they gave was small, enough to pay for their little house, and leave her a tiny bit extra, but not for big stuff or costly saves. But here she was, looking through her old leather bag for the 50 cents Jake wanted. "You sure about this, Dorothy?" Jake's voice got softer, losing its sharp bit. He'd known Frank, went to school with him, and he got the alone feeling that could make someone do silly choices. "He's real small, might not even be okay." Dorothy counted 2 quarters, their tops smooth from lots of use. These coins had got her bread just the day before, but something in the donkey's eyes said they'd do better here. "Sometimes the tiniest things have the biggest spirits," she said, pushing the coins into Jake's hand. The buy felt big even though it was simple. Jake opened the gate, and the donkey stepped out with careful pride, like heck knew his life just changed a lot. Dorothy had brought a pull rope, hoping her gut was right. The donkey took the head strap without fuss, standing still as she fixed the bands around his thin head. "What you gonna name him?" Jake asked, his tough outside not quite hiding his wonder. Dorothy looked at the donkey's smart eyes, seeing how they seemed to look at stuff past what's right there, like he could see ways that she couldn't spot. "Buster," she picked. "He seems like a tough one to me." The walk to her truck gave the first peek at Buster's odd ways. Instead of trailing behind nicely, he walked next to her with sure steps, sometimes stopping to check rocks or rock shapes that Dorothy herself would have missed. When they got to her old Ford truck, Buster stepped into the pull box without waiting, getting comfy like a pro traveler. The ride up the twisty mountain path to her little house gave Dorothy time to think what she'd got into. Frank's rock books were spread on the seat next to her, fat notebooks full of his careful notes about mineral spots, rock shapes, and the rock past of their dear mountains. She'd been looking through them lately, trying to feel near him, trying to get the land that took his life, but also made their joy. The book showed Frank's big respect for the ground. His words weren't just science stuff, but almost poem-like talks of how water cut deep spots over thousands of years, how push and time turned plain minerals into fancy stones, how the mountains kept secrets that would take whole lives to find out. Reading his stuff, Dorothy felt like she saw the land through his eyes. Every rock shape telling a tale, every stream bottom holding hints to old ways. Her little house sat on 40 acres of trees and open grass. Bought long ago when land was cheap and their hopes were big. Frank had made most of it himself, adding parts as they needed, making special shelves for his rock stuff and her books. Thielen touched National Forest, giving endless walking paths and the kind of alone time that city people pay lots to get for a week. Buster stepped out of the pull box and right away started checking his new spot with careful checking. Dorothy watched him look at the chicken house, the small barn, and the veggie patch with the eye of someone mapping new land. The chickens, used to different animal guests over time, looked at him with small interest before going back to their forever hunt for bugs and seeds. What hit Dorothy most was how Buster moved over the land. While her past saves needed time to get used, checking their new spot with scared steps of moved animals, Buster moved like he fit here. More than that, he moved like he knew where he was headed. That night, as Dorothy sat on her front step with tea and one of Frank's books, she watched Buster eat grass in the field below. The sun going down colored the mountains in orange and pink, the same shades that pulled her and Frank to this spot years back. Far away, the tops of the Sangre de Cristo hills stood like old guards. Keeping their secrets tight, Buster lifted his head from the grass and looked right at her, those dark eyes showing something that made her heart jump. For a second, she could swear she saw Frank's soft smile in the donkey's face. That same calm knowing that made her husband such a good watcher of the wild world. The mountains seemed to whisper okay in the night wind, and Dorothy felt a buzz of looking forward she hadn't felt since Frank died. Tomorrow, she picked, she would take Buster for a real check of the paths they knew well. She had no clue that this easy choice would change all she thought she knew about the land she called home. As stars started showing in the getting dark sky, Dorothy shut Frank's book and went in, feeling more cheery than she had in months. In the field below, Buster kept eating, but his focus seemed on something way past the grass by his feet, something hid in the mountains that were around them. Waiting calm for the right time to show up, the morning air had the fresh hint of fall, when Dorothy hooked the pull rope to Buster's head strap for their first true trip together. She'd packed light, just water, some snack mix, and one of Frank's rock books in case they saw something neat. The usual heaviness of her small pack felt nice as they headed out on what she thought would be an easy start to the mountain paths. Buster had other ideas. Totally, instead of going on the used path that went to Eagle's Rest, a normal walk Dorothy had done lots of times with Frank, Buster pulled steady toward a hardly seen deer path that split off through thick aspen trees. Dorothy had seen this faint line before but never went on it. It looked like it would end after a bit, going nowhere special. "Come on, Buster," she said, soft, pulling the rope toward the main path. "Let's do something easy first." But Buster set his small feet with surprising stubborn, his ears up and ready, fixed on something Dorothy couldn't spot or hear. When she tried again to lead him to the known path, he actually stepped back a few bits, then looked at her with such clear want that she laughed even though annoyed. "You really want to go there, huh?" His answer was to take a sure step toward the deer path, stopping to look back at her like, "You coming or what?" Dorothy had learned over the years to trust what animals feel. Frank had joked lots that animals know stuff people forgot how to sense. Against her smart thinking, she went with Buster into the aspens, thinking to turn back soon when the path for sure vanished. But the path didn't vanish. If anything, it got clearer as they went up, twisting between big rock chunks and through fields Dorothy had never spotted, even after living here over 20 years. The path showed signs of old use, smooth in spots, with stones put careful that seemed too planned to be from nature. An hour into their surprise trip, they came out on a rocky edge Dorothy didn't know. The sight was awesome, giving views of the nearby tops that no real path gave. But what grabbed her eye wasn't the view. It was the careful stack of stones that sat like a tiny statue on the top spot of the edge. Dorothy had seen lots of path stacks before. The rock piles walkers made to show ways or remember their trip. This was not the same. The stones were worn smooth, clearly way older than quick path signs. They'd been picked for size and shade, fitted together with the kind of exact that said planned reason rather than quick make. Buster walked right to the stack and stopped, dropping his head like giving honor to something holy. Dorothy followed her rock training without thinking, checking the stones. They weren't from here. At least 3 kinds of rock, including what looked like hard white rock that would have come from far off. Someone had carried these stones here with clear plan. "What do you think, Frank?" she said soft to the wind, a thing she'd started since he died. "What would you say about this?" As if answering, a quick wind moved the aspen leaves around the stack, and Dorothy spotted something that made her heart go fast. Half-hid under years of built-up forest junk was a flat stone with what looked like cut marks. She knelt careful, brushing dirt and tree needles with the care of a digger finding old things. The marks were light but, for sure, made by hand, not random lines, but planned signs cut into the stone's top. They looked like arrows or waypointers, showing deeper into the wild. Dorothy opened Frank's book, matching the strange signs to his careful draws of rock shapes and mineral signs. Nothing fit exact, but something about the exact of the cuts reminded her of the marker signs Frank had shown her to spot the kinds of signs mine workest to show owns and edges. The afternoon sun came through the trees at an angle, making light and dark patterns that seemed to highlight the cut arrows. Dorothy found herself looking at the land in the way they pointed, spotting things she would have missed without this new look. There, another edge hardly seen through the trees. And there, what might be another stack of stones, too far to be sure, but put right where the arrows seemed to show. Buster watched her with calm smart, like he got how big her find was, and was waiting for her to get the same idea he'd already had. When she finally got up, brushing dirt from her knees, he was already facing the way shown by the arrows. "You knew this was here, didn't you?" she asked him. "Somehow you knew just where to take me." The walk back to the little house felt not the same, full of chances and questions that had no quick fixes. Dorothy's thoughts jumped with ideas and reasons, each cooler than the last. Who made that stack? When and why did Buster seem to know just where it was? That night, she laid Frank's rock checks across her kitchen table, looking for any talk of the edge they'd gone to. The real land maps showed the spot as wild land no one checked, but Frank's own notes were more full. In the sides of a 1998 check, she found a hard-to-read note. "Weird rock shapes. Check more." The words made her feel cold. Frank had known there was something odd about that spot, but never went after his note. Life got in the way. Job needs, family stuff, the usual jobs that take up years without us seeing. Now, 25 years after, a 50-cent donkey had taken her right to whatever Frank had spotted, but never had time to check. Dorothy stayed up late that night, looking over every book, every map, every draw Frank had made of the nearby mountains. The more she read, the more sure she got that the stack was just the start, a sign pointing to something bigger and more big deal. Frank's rock know-how, mixed with her own getting excited, drew a pick of chances that made sleep hard. Outside her window, Buster stood quiet in the moon-bright field, his shape dark against the silver grass. Even from far, Dorothy could see that he was facing the mountains, ready and watching, like he could feel things moving in the dark that people couldn't see. Tomorrow, she picked, they would follow those arrows wherever they went. Frank would have wanted her to check, to go after the secret he'd noted but never fixed. And something told her that Buster wouldn't stop until she got what he'd taken her to find. The mountains kept their secrets in the dark. But Dorothy felt sure that morning would bring the start of finds that would change all she thought. She knew about the wild she called home. The ride down to Millbrook's county office felt not the same this time, full of reason rather than usual. Dorothy had done this trip lots of times over the years, paying land fees, fixing papers, doing the boring forms that come with mountain life. But today she carried Frank's books, and a growing sure that yesterday's find was just the start of something way bigger. Martha Hendricks had worked the county paper's office for 37 years, and her memory of stuff was famous among people there. If anyone would know about old checks or mine owns in Dorothy's spot, it would be Martha. The older lady looked up from her filing with real happy when Dorothy came to the counter. Well, Dorothy Camden, haven't seen you here in months. How are you doing up there alone? Getting by okay, Martha? Really, I'm hoping you can help with some looking. I'm trying to follow the check past for the spot around my land, especially the wild parts that touch national forest land. Martha's eyes got bright with want. Past looking is my fave kind of work. Way more fun than doing build papers all day. What just are you hunting for? Dorothy spread one of Frank's land maps on the counter, pointing to the edge where she'd found the stack. This spot here. I found some old signs yesterday, stone stacks and cut signs that look like they might be checkpointers. Frank made notes about weird rock shapes in that area. But I'd like to know if anyone ever put official owns ordered rock checks there. Give me a few mins, Martha said, going into the mess of file boxes that lined the back wall. We have check papers from way back to old days, though some of the older ones are in bad shape. While Martha looked, Dorothy checked the other maps and papers shown around the office. Millbrook had been a busy mine town in the 1920s and 1930s, but most of the work had been on copper and silver pulling in the low spots, not the higher wild areas where she'd found the stack. Martha came back with a box and some rolled papers, her face excited. You've tripped on something cool, Dorothy. Look at this. A rock check from 1932 put by a finder named Jake Morrison. The check spot includes just the part you're asking about. The check map was water-hurt and weak, but Dorothy could see the careful notes and height signs. Morrison had been full, noting not just mineral chance, but also land shapes, water spots, and way routes. Most cool. His map showed the exact spot of the stone stack Dorothy had found, marked with the note trail sign 1. Trail sign number 1, Dorothy said again. That means there were more. That's what I thought, Martha said yes. And look at this. Morrison put for a mine own covering almost 200 acres in that spot. But here's the cool part. The own was left after only 6 months, and Morrison vanished that winter. Local tales say he went nuts from being alone, but some thought he'd found something big and was keeping it hid. Dorothy's beat got faster as she checked Morrison's full draws. The guy had clearly been taught, maybe trained as a checker or rock guy. His draws showed rock shapes and mineral signs with the kind of exact Frank would have liked. But there were also odd notes, talks of safe hide and nature keep that seemed weird for a usual mine work. Did Morrison ever put any tester reports? Any papers of what he found? Martha pulled a brown folder. This is all we have. Morrison was hid about his work, but he did put one first report with the mine office. It's been in our files for 90 years. The tester report made Dorothy's hands shake. Morrison had sent samples showing very high gold stuff, not just bits, but lots that would show a big spot. The guest worth figured in 1932 was big enough to make any finder rich. Why would he leave such a good own? Dorothy wondered out loud. That's where the secret gets cool, Martha said, making her voice low like sharing a secret. My grandma worked here back then, and she always said Morrison was not like other finders. He seemed more into keeping the land than using it. Some people thought he was crazy, but Grandma thought he had rules that fought with getting rich fast. Dorothy took pics of every paper with her phone, making sure to get Morrison's full maps and draws. The more she learned about the secret finder, the more his tale fit with her own ideas. Frank had always taught her that the mountains need respect, not just using. Is there any way to see if Morrison's own is still legal okay? Martha checked another book. Owns left for more than 90 days go back to public unless special fix steps are done. Morrison never put fixes, so the land is open for new owns, but it's mostly in national forest lines now, which makes it hard. Driving back up the mountain, Dorothy's thoughts jumped with chances and questions. Morrison had clearly found something good in 1932, but this choice to leave the own said reasons past simple money. His talks of nature keep were years ahead of time. The kind of think-ahead nature care that wouldn't be normal until the 1970s. The most cool part was how Morrison's path signs fit perfect with Buster's gut leading. Could it be just luck that a 50-cent donkey had taken her right to a 90-year-old secret? Or was there something deeper going? Some kind of passed-down know from lines of animals that had worked these mountains? Back at the little house, Dorothy laid Morrison's maps next to Frank's rock checks, looking for links and patterns. The same things were shocking. Both guys had noted the same weird rock, the same mineral signs, the same odd rock shapes. Frank had been close to finding what Morrison had spotted years before. As afternoon dark grew across her kitchen table, Dorothy made a choice that would have seemed not possible just days back. Tomorrow she would go back to the mountains with metal fine gear and real check tools. If Morrison had left a line of signs leading to his find, she was going to follow that line to its stop. Outside, Buster ate grass calm in the field. But Dorothy saw he kept lifting his head to look at the far tops, like he could feel something calling from the wild, something that had been waiting calm for almost 100 years to be found by someone good for its secrets. Dorothy's metal finder had been getting dusty in the barn since Frank died. He'd got it years back during Ash's short time of finding fun back when gold costs were up and old age seemed more not sure than now. She'd forgot how heavy the thing was until she put it over her back with her walk pack, getting ready for what felt like the most big trip of her life. Buster waited calm while she fixed bands and checked stuff, but his body said hurry, ears up, wait toward the mountain. Every bit of his small body fixed on the unseen path. Only he seemed to get it. When she finally hooked the pull rope to his head strap, he right away went toward the same deer path that had taken them to the first stack. The morning fog stuck to the aspen groups as they went up, making an almost magic feel that seemed right for their job. Dorothy found herself walking different today, paying mind to bits she'd past missed, the way some rocks were set, the small changes in plants that might show different dirt kinds, the spots where water had cut odd patterns into the land. An hour into their walk, Buster took her off the last day's way, following what seemed an even lighter path through thick, low plants. Dorothy's shore wavered as branches grabbed her clothes, and the path seemed to go away totally. But Buster moved with such sure that she made herself trust his call. They came out into a small open spot she'd never seen, ruled by a huge rock chunk that stood like a nature statue. Buster walked right to the bottom of the chunk and stopped, looking back at Dorothy with clear weight. "This is it, isn't it?" she asked him. "This is what you wanted to show me?" She turned on the metal finder and started a careful sweep around the chunk's bottom. Right away, the thing started beeping louder. Dorothy's heart went fast as she made the sound smaller to a spot where the rock met the forest ground, half hid by years of built-up tree needles and plant junk. Kneeling careful, she started clearing the nature mess. 6 inches down, her fingers hit something hard and metal. Working calm, she dug up a bent but whole gold pan, the kind finders had used for over 100 years. The pan was old, it stopped dark from time and weather, but clearly good-made and cared for. "Oh, wow," Dorothy said soft, holding the pan like a special old thing. "Buster, this was Morrison's, wasn't it?" The metal finder kept beeping as she made her look bigger. In an hour, she'd dug up a small hide of finding tools, a pick top, a sifter, some sample holders, and most amazing, a water-safe bag with what seemed maps and papers. Dorothy's hands shook as she carefully took out the stuff in the bag. Morrison had got ready for the chance that someone would follow his path. The papers had full draws of the near land with arrows showing the way to next signs, and most cool a letter written in careful writing on paper that had lived 9/10 of years in the wild. To whoever follows the signs, the letter started, "Know that you walk in the steps of one who loved this land more than gold itself. The treasure you seek is real, but the true wealth lies in understanding why it must be protected rather than plundered." Morrison's letter kept going with exact steps for finding the next sign, but also with warnings about the responsibility that came with knowledge. He wrote about the fight between quick money and long keep, about the need to save wild for kids later, about the risk of letting want destroy one-of-a-kind nature beauty. "I have seen what mine work does to clean land," Morrison had written. "The treasure I found could make a man rich, but it could also wreck everything I've grown to love about these mountains. The signs I leave are for someone who will get the difference between having money and being good for it." Dorothy read the letter 2 times, each word fitting with her own growing get of what she'd tripped into. This wasn't just about finding gold. It was about proving good for a past that Morrison had kept for almost 100 years. As she packed the old things, Dorothy saw Buster's ways had changed. His ears were always moving, turning toe-catch sounds she couldn't hear. When she looked where he looked, she thought she saw move in the trees. Too planned to be animals. Too far to know for sure. The walk back to the little house felt not the same, marked by a growing feel that they were not alone in the wild. 2 times, Dorothy heard far sounds of motors, 4-wheelers or bikes in spots where motor stuff weren't allowed when they got to an edge with clear look of the low spot below. She saw dust clouds along some old mine roads that were said not used in tens of years. That night, Dorothy called her sister Linda in Denver, needing to share her finds with someone who would get how big they were. Linda had always been the real one, the money counter who dealt in facts and numbers rather than dreams and chances. "Dorothy, you gotta be careful," Linda said, after hearing about the gold pan and Morrison's letter. "If word spreads about possible gold spots, you'll have every luck hunter in Colorado walking through your land." "But Linda, this isn't about getting rich fast. Morrison was trying to keep something big." "That's real good. But 90-year-old finders aren't the only ones into gold. New mine work have stuff that can clear a whole mountainside in months. If there's real big gold there, you need law keep before word goes." The talk left Dorothy with more questions than fixes. How could she honor Morrison's idea of keep while dealing the now truths of mineral owns and law owns? How could she keep the wild she loved while going after the secret that Buster had led her to find? As night came over the mountains, Dorothy sat on her step with Morrison's letter and Frank's rock books, trying to put a plan that would fit both her wonder and her good sense. In the field below, Buster ate grass calm, but she saw he kept lifting his head to look toward the dark shapes of the tops, like he could feel something coming through the wild, something that would soon make her make choices she wasn't ready to face. Dorothy's next trip to the office felt hurry in a way her past looking hadn't. Morrison's letter had given spots for the third sign, but it had also warned about those who would wreck for money what should be kept for later. As she laid the new papers across Martha's counter, Dorothy couldn't shake the feel that time was short. "You've been working," Martha said, checking the pics of Morrison's old things. "This is awesome, like opening a time box from the hard times era." "Martha, I need to get the law side." If Morrison's own was left, what would stop someone else from putting a new own on the same land? Martha pulled out some thick books. "That's where stuff gets hard. In 1932, mine law was way easy. Put a own, work the land, keep the edges. But now rules are totally different, especially on forest land. Nature hit studies, rare animal checks, water owns checks. The steps can take years, but someone could still put a own. For sure. In fact, there's been more doing lately. Rick Dalton's build company has put first checks for some spots around here. On paper, they're looking for rock bits for road jobs, but talk is they're real into fancy metals." Dorothy felt her belly drop. Rick Dalton was known all over the area as a guy who put money over all. His company had a name for doing jobs fast and cheap, no matter nature hurt. If Dalton learned about Morrison's find, the clean wild would turn into work spot in months. How much does Dalton know about Morrison's old own? Hard to tell, but he's been asking stuff. "Last week, hesked for copies of all rock checks from the 1930s. I had to give them. They're open papers, but I didn't like how he looked at those maps." Martha pulled a new putt. "Look at this." Dalton put an ask for mineral rights check on almost 500 acres of Forest Service land. The edges include your landline and gowl into the spot Morrison was doing. Dorothy checked Dalton's maps with growing worry. His planned check spot covered not just Morrison's old own, but also the edge where she'd found the first stack and the open where Buster had led her to the buried tools. If Dalton's ask was okayed, he'd have law power to bring big stuff into the wild, doing checks that could wreck Morrison's careful hid path forever. "How long do I have before his ask is done?" Forest Service looks take 60 to 90 days, but there's a public say time first. You could put a no, but you'd need reasons. Nature worries, old dig big, something real. Dorothy left the office with copies of all key papers and a growing hurry feel. Morrison had spent months careful hiding his find to keep it from just this kind of work using. Now, 90 years after, his worst scares were close to Toriel unless she could find a way to stop them. The ride back to her little house took longer than usual because she kept checking her back mirror. 2 times she saw the same dark truck following at a far space, but when she turned to her own road, the truck kept going without slow. Still, something about the time felt too right to be just chance. Buster was waiting by the gate when she got there, his body waist-tight and ready. Instead of his usual easy high, he moved right to her truck, pushing his nose against her hand with odd hurry. When she tried to take out her look stuff, he stepped in her way, clear upset about something. "What is it, Buster? What's bad?" Following his look toward the little house, Dorothy saw right away what bugged him. Her front door was a bit open. Not much, just enough to show someone had been in. She always locked the door when going, a habit made from years living alone in a far spot. Dorothy's heart beat hard as she went to the little house careful. The door showed no break signs, but the lock part looked like it had been smart fixed. Inside, all seemed normal at first look, but Dorothy's eye for bits showed the small signs of come in. Books moved a bit on shelves, papers not just where she'd left. Frank's rock book set in a different way. Someone had checked her home with pro-care, looking for something exact while trying to hide it. But what could they have wanted? Morrison's letter and old things were in her truck, and Frank's books had nothing about gold spots or mine owns. Then she got what was gone. The land maps she'd laid across her kitchen table, the ones showing Morrison's own edges, and the spots where she'd found the old things were missing. Whoever had come in knew just what they hunted and took only what they needed. Dorothy's hands shook as she called the area cop office, but she knew the answer would be usual. No good stuff taken, no clear hurt to stuff, no see people in a spot where close folks are miles off. The helper cop who came later was nice but doubt, saying that Dorothy might have just lost the maps or forgot to lock her door. "Ma'am, we get calls like this a lot from people living alone in far spots. Sometimes folks just feel scared when there's no real cause. Maybe you should think about a safe system." After the helper left, Dorothy sat on her step with Buster, trying to get what happened. The time couldn't be chance. Someone knew about her looking, knew about Morrison's find, and was moving to stay ahead of her check. But who? And how had they learned about her doings so fast? Buster pushed against her leg, giving comfort in his quiet way. Looking into his smart eyes, Dorothy got that her 50-cent save had become her best friend in a thing that was getting more risky by the hour. Tomorrow, Shepik, they would keep following Morrison's path, no matter who might be watching. She owed it to Morrison's memory, to Frank's wonder look, and to the wild itself, to see this secret through to its end. But first, she needed to be safe. Dorothy moved Frank's left books to a safe box in town, took pics of Morrison's letter and old things from lots of sides, and sent copies of all to Linda in Denver with steps to call cops if anything bad to her. As dark came over the mountains, Dorothy checked every lock 2 times and pulled the window covers tight. In the barn, she got ready-hurry stuff, food, water, camp gear, and Morrison's old things in case they needed to go fast. She had the bad feel that her calm mountain life was about to get way more hard, and that Buster's secret no might be the only thing between Morrison's past and those who would wreck it for money. Dorothy woke before sun to the sound of Buster's hurry call, a noise she'd never heard from him before. Through her sleep room window, she could see his shape in the field, head up and ears ready, facing the mountains like a guard spotting coming bad. The before-sun dark seemed heavier than usual, full with tight that made the hair on her arm up. She got clothes fast and grabbed her hurry pack, trusting Buster's feels more than her own think mind. Outside, the air had the far rumble of big motors, too early for real forest work, too together to be fun rides. Someone was moving stuff up the old mine roads under dark cover. Buster came to her right away, pushing his nose against her hand in a sign that had become their hurry talk. When she hooked the pull rope to his head strap, he didn't go toward their usual path, but instead took her right into the thick trees behind her little house, following what seemed an old animal path she'd never spotted. They went up through thick low stuff for almost an hour before coming out on a rocky spot that gave a clear look of the low spots below. What Dorothy saw made her feel cold. Line of trucks and big stuff was going up the old Esperanza mine road. Pushers, diggers, and what looked like deep drill stuff. Even in the low before sunlight, she could see the special mark of Dalton build on the ride doors. "They're not waiting for okay papers," Dorothy said soft to Buster. "They're going in while they think noon's looking." From this look spot, she could see their go spot, the edge where she'd found Morrison's first stack. Dalton's group was going right for the spot marked on the map taken from her little house. Somehow, they'd linked her looking to Morrison's find and picked to own it for them before she could make any law keep. Buster pulled at the pull rope, pulling her eye away from the line towards something else. Following his look, Dorothy spotted a second group moving through the trees on foot. 4 guys in hide clothes carrying check stuff and metal finders. They were going to the open where she'd found Morrison's buried tools, moving with the together exact of pros. Dorothy's thoughts ran through her choices. She could go back to the little house and call the cop, but by the time anyone came, Dalton's group would be set on the spot with stuff that would take days to move. She could try to reach the Forest Service straight, but their offices wouldn't open for hours. Most mad, she had no law stand to stop them. Morrison's old own had been left, and her own finds were on public land. But Buster seemed to have a different plan all. Instead of going back toward the little house, he started going down the far side of the edge. Following what Dorothy Slow got was another part of Morrison's first path. The finder had been full in his way planning, making many ways to his signs that would let get even if the main paths were stopped. They got to Morrison's third sign just as the east sky started showing the first bits of morning. This stack was bigger than the others, built into a nature rock shape that gave both Hyde and a boss look of the near land. Hid in the stones, Dorothy found another water-safe bag holding Morrison's most full maps and what seemed his last letter. If you have got this far, Morrison had written, then you get that the treasure is both real and in risk. The next sign will take you to the main Hyde, but watch out. Others will soon come who care nothing for keep or care. The land itself will check your goodness. Morrison's last map showed the spot of his main find, but it also had full warnings about not steady ground, under streams, and the need for careful come-to-get safe. Most big, it showed that the main spot was hid in a way that would need calm and respect for the nature world to get right. The sound of coming motors got louder as Dalton's line got to the first edge. Through the trees, Dorothy could see the guys with metal finders starting their careful look of the spot where she'd found Morrison's tools. It was only time before they found the same path she and Buster had been on. "We gotta get there first," Dorothy told Buster. Morrison trusted whoever would follow his signs. "We can't let them wreck what he spent his life keeping." Buster's answer was to go off right away along the last part of path, moving with even bigger hurry than before. The way led through getting rough land, across rock areas, through tight, deep spotsways, and along edges that needed careful steps. Dorothy got that Morrison had picked the hardest way on purpose, making sure that only someone real into the trip would get to the last spot. Behind them, the sound of cut saws echoed through the trees as Dalton's group started clearing plants to make space for their big stuff. The wreck was starting even before they'd found what they hunted, showing Morrison's worst scares about work mine doings. As they went higher into the mountains, Dorothy felt a growing link to the long-gone finder who'd walked these same ways almost 100 years back. Morrison had faced the same pick she was facing. Own money versus nature keep. Quick get versus long care. His choice to hide rather than use his find was starting to seem not just good, but see ahead. The last sign showed just as the morning sun got over the east tops, throwing gold light across a Hyde low spot that took Dorothy's breath. The nature bowl was unlike anything she'd seen in 20 years of mountain checking. Clean fields around by rock walls with a clear-as-glass stream going through the middle. It was the kind of spot that lived in wild dreams. Not touched by people do and perfect in its alone, Buster led her right to a big chunk by the stream, where Morrison's last stack stood like a table to the wild itself. But as Dorothy went to the stones, she heard something that made her heart down. The far roar of air rides coming from the low spot below. Dalton wasn't just bringing ground stuff. He was doing a full air check to find just what she'd just found. The race for Morrison's treasure had started for real, and Dorothy got she was about to find if 90 years of calm waiting had got the mountains ready to keep their secrets from those who would wreck them. For AC ahead, the air ride's blade wind spread. The morning fog as Dorothy hid behind Morrison's last stack, her heart beating with the know that find seemed can't stop. But Buster showed no scare of the coming air thing. Instead, he walked calm to the chunk's bottom and started pawing at what seemed solid rock. His doings planned and fixed despite the mess coming from up. Following his lead, Dorothy checked the chunk more careful and found what Morrison's last letter had only hinted. The whole rock shape was made. A careful-made front hiding the way to a nature cave line. The finder had spent months hiding his find so full that even from close, the way in stayed not seen. Smart, Dorothy breathed, running her hands along the good-fit stones. Morrison wasn't just hiding gold. He was keeping a hole under land. As the air ride went round up, Dorothy found the headway Morrison had said in his letter. An exact order of push on some stones made a part of the front toe turn in, showing a way just big enough for a person and donkey to go in. The make was awesome, saying that Morrison had skills way past usual finding no. Inside the cave, Dorothy's light showed wonders that made her breathe wow. Morrison hadn't just found gold. He found an underchurch cut by millions of years of water move. Hangdowns and flow rock made nature art of breathtaking beauty, while an understream gave the music sound of moving water echoing through hid rooms. But what stopped Dorothy right there wasn't the rock wow. It was Morrison's last hide of papers careful kept in a metal box be what seemed a nature stone table. These weren't mine notes or treasure maps, but rather the full books of a guy whose finds had totally changed his get of money itself. Morrison's real tale came out as Dorothy read through pages of Careful Writing by Light with Buster Standing. Calm Watch at the Caveway Inn. Jake Morrison hadn't been a usual finder at all, but rather a trained rock guy and maker who'd been paid by mine wants to check the spot for big pull chance. His first finds had sure showed big gold spots, but they'd also showed something way more good. An underworld of rare minerals and rock shapes that would be wrecked by usual mine. I came here looking for luck, Morrison had written, but I found something way more good. A job to keep, what can't be put back. The gold is real, but pulling it would wreck shapes that took millions of years to make. I can't be the guy who trades one-of-a-kind beauty for short money. The book kept with Morrison's growing nature wake years ahead of time. He'd got that the underrooms had not just gold, but also rare rock bits, one-of-a-kind rock shapes, and even proof of old native holy use. The cave line was basically a nature show of rock, and people past that work mine would wipe in days. I have picked to hide rather than use my find. Morrison had written in his last write, the signs I leave will lead someone good to this spot. But the real treasure lies in getting that some things are more good when left alone. Let whoever follows these signs prove themselves good for this job. But Morrison's most shock show came in his last letter, sealed apart and marked for the one who finishes the trip. Dorothy's hands shook as she read his last tell. He hadn't left his own because of nature worries alone, but because he'd found that the gold spots went far past his law edges, covering wholly native spots that would be hurt by mine work. I have learned that this low spot was seen wholly by the first live here. Morrison had written, the gold sits under holy grounds that were used for sea dreams and spirit dew for lots of lines. I can't get money from wrecking what others held holy, even if the law lets me. Morrison's good wake had led him to a big choice. Instead of putting for bigger mine owns, he'd talked to tribe people and offered to help them make law keep for the holy spots. But his tries had been cut short by the hard winter that took his life, leaving his nature dream not done for almost 100 years. The means hit Dorothy like a hit. This wasn't just about keeping wild from work using. It was about honoring native rights and holy lands that were before any mine owns by thousands of years. Morrison's hide treasure was really proof of a good change that had been waiting 90 years for someone to keep his work. Outside the cave, the air ride had landed in the field, and Dorothy could hear voices coming through the trees. Rick Dalton's group was doing a careful look of that spot using metal finders and ground sea radar to find Morrison's hide. But they were looking for gold spots, not getting that Theral treasure was the cave line itself and the job that came with its find. Buster's soft sound drew Dorothy's eye to something she'd first missed. A line of pick signs on the cave walls painted with nature colors and showing dew with the underrooms. The art was old but good kept, showing Morrison's find that this spot had been holy to native people long before any from Europe finders came. Wow, Dorothy said soft, getting finally coming. Morrison wasn't hiding taken gold. He was keeping a holy spot. And now I have to pick if to honor his idea or let it be wrecked. The voices outside got closer, and Dorothy got she had only mins before Dalton's group found the hidway in. Morrison's books made clear that the gold was real and good, probably worth millions now. But pulling it would need wrecking one-of-a-kind rock shapes and hurting holy native spots that need keep, not using. In that time, hid in an underchurch with a 50-cent donkey who'd somehow known just where to lead her, Dorothy got what Morrison had got 90 years before. True money wasn't counted in cash, but in the job to keep what couldn't be put back. The pick facing her wasn't between poor and rich, but between honoring the smart of the past and doing again the wrongs that had already hurt too much of the nature world. Buster pushed against her leg, giving quiet help for whatever pick she would make. Looking into his smart eyes, Dorothy felt sure that Morrison's spirit had somehow led her to this time, trusting her to finish the work he'd started. The question was, if she had the brave to follow his way, even if it meant going away from more money than she'd ever thought of having. The sound of metal finders got louder outside, and Dorothy knew her time for pick was short. In her hands, she held proof of gold spots worth millions, along with Morrison's good words about the true cost of pulling. Whatever choices she made in the next few mins would set not just her own future, but the end of a holy land that had been waiting almost 100 years for someone good for its keep. Dorothy's pick got clear with sudden sure as the voices outside got closer. Morrison had made a test not of want or stick, but of smart and good brave. The fancy line of signs hadn't been made to lead money hunters to gold, but to lead the right person toward getting what really counted. She carefully put back Morrison's books to their keep box, but kept his last letter, the proof she would need for what next. "We're getting out of here, Buster," she said soft, "but we're not running. We're going to end what Morrison began." The cave line was bigger than she'd first got. Morrison's maps showed many ways and outs, including one that came out almost a mile off in a thick group of aspens. The finder had planned for just this thing, a way to get away not seen while leaving his treasure kept from those who would wreck it for money. Going the underways by light needed careful look at Morrison's hand-made maps, but Buster seemed to get the way by feel. Maybe it was the same past no that had led him to the first signs, or maybe he could feel the air moves that showed ways to the top. Either way, Hisher in the dark gave Dorothy brave to keep through ways that would have scared her usual. They came out into morning sun almost an hour after, hid by the aspen group and totally not seen from Dalton's look-do. From this spot, Dorothy could see the full size of the work come in. Pushers had already started clearing trees around the first stack spot. While teams with metal finders were doing box looks of the whole low spot floor, the sight made her sure stronger. Morrison had scared just this kind of using, and his worst bad dreams were happening now. But not like the finder who'd worked alone in the 1930s, Dorothy had get tone you talk and law stuff that could stop the wreck before it went too far. Her first call was to Linda, telling the thing with the hurry it needed. "I need you to talk to the state past group right now. Tell them we've found paper proof of Native American holy spots that are being risked by bad mind do. I'm sending you pics of the cave draws now. Linda's money mind, right, got the law means. Dorothy, if you can prove native holy use, that changes all. Fed law needs talk with tribe people before any mess do can happen on holy spots, even on public land. How long will that steps take? Days at least, weeks more like. But do you need okay papers from known tribe bosses? Do you have any clue which tribes used that spot in past?" Dorothy checked Morrison's books, finding his careful notes about tribe people. He'd talked in the 1930s. He says the Southern Ute and the Guerrilla Apache. Morrison thought the cave was used for sea dreams and growing up do. Perfect. I'm calling both tribe groups right now. They'll have law stand to ask a hurry stop if their holy spots are risked. While Linda worked the law sides, Dorothy's next call was to Tom Bradley, the Forest Service guard, who'd helped her with past looking. Bradley's answer was right and nice. He'd been worried about Dalton's check doings for weeks, but hadn't had reasons for step in until now. "Dorothy, what you're saying is just what we needed. If Dalton's groups are doing without right okay in spots of people big, I can close them right pending nature and people hit checks. How fast can you get there? I'm 20 mins out. Keep me told on your spot. And whatever, stay far from the doing work spots. Some of Dalton's folks have been real push with anyone who asks their doings." Dorothy's last call was to the local paper. Knowing that people I would give keep, her small law team might not promise. The nature writer was hooked by the tale of Morrison's hid keep past and said to have a pick taker at the spot in hours. "This is just the kind of tale our readers like," the writer said. "Local past, nature keep, native rights. It hits every side that counts to our group." From her hid spot in the aspens, Dorothy watched Dalton's do with growing happy as her friends started to answer. The first Forest Service ride got just as the pushers were getting ready to take Morrison's first stack. Bradley's step-in was fast and sure. All machines were told to stop, do right pending, okay, check, and nature look. But Rick Dalton wasn't giving up easy. Dorothy could see him fight with Bradley, waving mad at the stuff and the part-cleared trees. When the tribe people got, two old guys who checked the cave draws with holy care. Dalton's mad became seen even from far. The paper pick taker noted all. The bad clearing do, the tribe old checking holy spots, the fancy cave line that work mine would have wrecked. Each pick made the case stronger for forever keep of Morrison's find. As the day went, Dorothy felt more sure that Morrison's idea could finally happen. The law frame was there to keep holy native spots. The nature laws were strong to stop wreck mine in touchy worlds. The people help was big once folks got what was risked. But her happy was less by watching Dalton's getting desperate tries to save his due. His groups were still doing checks in spots past Bradley's right-now boss, and his law team was putting hurry calls to turn over the work stop. Most worry, some of his stuff runners seemed more into Dorothy's spot than in packing their machines. They know I have Morrison's maps, Dorothy got, watching through far glasses as some guys checked the spot where she and Buster had come from the cave line. They're not stopping. They're trying to find another way in. Buster's ways showed her worries. The donkey was getting upset, his ears always moving to follow sounds that Dorothy couldn't hear. When she followed his look toward the trees, she saw bits of move that said they were being watched by people who didn't want to be spotted. By late afternoon, Dorothy had put together a strong group of friends, tribe people, Forest Service bosses, nature lawyers, and paper eye that was growing by the hour. Morrison's 100-year-old dream of keeping the Holy Low spot was closer to real than ever. But as evening came, and most of the OK watchers started to go, Dorothy got that the real face-off was just starting. Dalton's folks were still in the spot, and they knew she had the key to getting Morrison's treasure. The law keep was strong, but not yet forever, and there were still hours of dark ahead when anything could happen. "Tomorrow we make this okay," she told Buster, as they got ready to spend the night in the Aspen group, rather than going back to her maybe bad little house. "Tomorrow we turn Morrison's hide low spot into a kept holy spot that no one can ever wreck. But first, they had to live a night in the wild with folks who had millions of dollars risked and no seem respect for law edges." Dorothy checked her hurry stuff and made sure her phone was full power for whatever hard the dark might bring. Morrison had kept his fine for 90 years. Now it was her turn to prove good for that past, no matter what it cost her. The come-at came just after middle night when Dorothy was sleeping not good against her pack with Buster, standing watch near. The donkey's hurry call woke her hard seconds before strong light beams cut the dark around their hid camp spot. 3 guys came from the trees, moving with army exact, their faces hid by night-sea stuff that gave them a big plus in the dark. "Mrs. Camden," the lead shape called out in a voice she knew as Rick Dalton's. "We need to talk about those maps you found. My law team says you're on land wrong. My company has real check rights to check." Dorothy's heart beat as she got to her feet, putting herself between the coming guys and Buster. Her phone showed no connect. They were too deep in the wild for sure talk. Just what Dalton had been hoping on. "Your checks were done without right, okay?" Dorothy called back, shocked by the steady in her own voice. "The Forest Service has already closed your due pending nature look." Dalton's laugh had no fun. "Short setback, nothing more. My lawyers are putting calls in Fed court tomorrow morning, and they're sure we'll have full okay to go in days. But that timeline hangs on having get to all key past papers, including Morrison's first maps. I've already gave all to the tribe people in the past group. You're wasting time." "I don't think." Dalton stepped closer, and Dorothy could see his face clear in the bounce light beams. "You see, Mrs. Camden, I've done my looking too. Morrison's own may have been left legal, but his rock checks were super right. The gold spots he noted are worth at least $3 million at now costs, maybe way more." Dorothy made herself stay calm even with the growing bad in Dalton's tone. "And you think that lets you wreck holy native spots? To flat a whole world for money? I think it lets me go after real work chances on public land using right lawways and nature safe. What you call wreck, I call good stuff. Makes jobs and makes fee money for the group." Buster moved closer to Dorothy. His body ways tight and keep in the dark past the light beams. Dorothy could hear other sounds, more steps, the crack of talk machines, the careful move of people around their spot. "How many guys did you bring?" Dorothy asked, holding time while her thoughts ran through choices for getaway. "Enough to make sure we can have a no-stop talk about our same wants," Dalton said back. "You see, Mrs. Camden, I'm not the bad in this tale. I'm giving you a team chance that could help all." "What kind of team?" "You help me get Morrison's hide, and I'll make sure that 20% of the money goes straight to Nature Keep plans. We'll make a group for Wild Keep, fund tribe people plans, even make a visitor spot to teach folks about the spot's past." The give was fancy, made to fit her nature worries while still getting Dalton's main want. But Dorothy had read Morrison's books careful enough to get that any mind do, no matter how good, would wreck the touchy underworld can't fix. Morrison spent months checking that cave line, Dorothy said back. He got that the rock shapes took millions of years to grow and couldn't be put back once wrecked. No money can pay for that kind of loss. Morrison was a hard-time finder with small science, no. Dalton said, new mine ways are way more exact and nature nice. We can pull the gold spots while keeping the most big rock bits and the wholly native spots. The dew rooms with draws that are before Europe touched by hundreds, kept as part of the visitor spot do. Visitor money from the past spot could really go over the worth of the gold pull over time. Dorothy felt a bit of doubt. Dalton's idea sounded okay, even forward compared to usual mine do. But something in his tone said nature keep was a talk spot rather than real want. Buster's sudden move broke the tight standoff. The donkey stepped front and put himself right between Dorothy and Dalton, his small body giving a keep feel that shocked all there. In that time, Dorothy got that her 50-cent save was ready to guard Morrison's past with the same stick that had led their trip from the start. I need time to think your idea, Dorothy said careful. These picks shouldn't be made under push in the middle of night. Sad, time is something we don't have, Dalton said back, his fake nice finally going away. My law team needs those maps by morning to put them in our Fed court put. Either you help willing, or we'll have to check other ways for getting the know we need. The bad was clear, and Dorothy got that her calm mountain life was about to become very hard indeed. Dorothy's time of pick was stopped by a not-wait sound, the far rumble of coming rides echoing through the trees. Dalton's head turned fast toward the noise, his sure way falling as many sets of front lights became seen through the trees. Sir, one of his guys said through the talk, we've got Forest Service, Tribe Cop, and what looks like paper rides coming up the main go road. Many units moving fast. Linda had clearly been busy in the afternoon putting together an answer that was coming with perfect time. Dorothy felt a big thank toward her real sister, whose money mind had clearly got the hurry of the thing better than anyone. You called in help, Dalton said bad, his voice tight with mad. This was supposed to be a own work talk. You brought gun guys to bat a lady camping alone in the wild, Dorothy said back, finding brave in the coming help. I'd say the thing went way past own work talk. The first ride to get their spot was Tom Bradley's Forest Service truck, followed close by 2 Tribe Cop units and a van with Channel 7 news marks. Dorothy had never been so glad to see maid lights cut the mountain dark. Bradley come from his truck with the calm boss of someone used to fixing tight things in wild spots. Good night, folks. We got reports of not okay night due in a no-go spot. I'm gonna need all to step back and say what's going here. Ranger Bradley, Dalton said, changing right to his work guy self. There seems to be some mix about check edges and go rights. My law team will have this fixed by morning. Really, Mr. Dalton, your law team will be dealing with Fed bad for scaring sea people and messing with a doing people keep check, said Joseph Yazy, the Tribe Cop head who came from the second ride. We've been watching your talk machines for the past hour. Dorothy got that the help hadn't come by luck. They've been following Dalton's moves and had probably heard enough of the face-off to get just what was happening. New Cop have stuff that Morrison could never have thought, and they were being used to keep the same holy spots the finder had died trying to save. Mrs. Camden, Chief, Yazy kept, our tribe past people have sure that the cave line you found has some of the most big do art in our old land. Fed law is very clear about keeping such spots from any kind of mess. The news pick taker was noting all. Flashlights lighting the weird scene of Gunface in the wild. Dorothy got that tomorrow's paper would tell the tale of Morrison's keep past in a way that would make it hard for anyone to ignore. Chief Yazy, I have something that belongs to your folks, Dorothy said, reaching careful into her pack to get Morrison's last letter. Jake Morrison wrote this in 1932, saying why he couldn't money from mine do that would wreck dew spots. He wanted tribe people to know about the holy rooms. Chief Yazy read Morrison's letter by light, his face getting more serious with each bit. When he done, he looked up at Dorothy with something close to honor. This finder got what many now people still don't get. The chief said, some spots are too holy to be counted in money. Morrison was trying to give back care of this spot, too. It's right, Watchers, which is just what we're going to do, Dorothy said back. Morrison left full papers of all he found, including maps of the cave line and pics of the dew art. It's all being given to the Tribe People Center, along with law papers making forever keep for the whole spot. Dalton's face showed lose as he got that his $1 million mine due had just become a Fed-kept people spot. You folks don't get what you're throwing. That gold could fund group grow for tens of years, Mr. Dalton, Chief Yazy said back with quiet pride. Our folks have been rich in the ways that count for thousands of years. We don't need to wreck holy spots to get our own worth. The face-off that had seemed so bad, just mins before turned into usual cop steps as Dalton and his guys were taken away for asking. Dorothy watched the back lights go down the mountain road, feeling like she'd just seen the last part of Morrison's 100-year fight to keep what couldn't be put back. "Mom," Bradley said as the now bad passed, "you've done something awesome here. Morrison's find will become one of the most big-kept people spots in the area. Your doings tonight probably saved one-of-a-kind old things that would have been wrecked by mine." Standing in the trees, open with Buster pushed against her side, Dorothy felt the weight of the past 90 years going into peace. Morrison's idea had finally happened, not through doings of mine companies or gov groups, but through the plain kind, of a lady who'd gave 50 cents for a donkey no one else wanted. The treasure had been found, kept, and gave back to its right watchers, just as Morrison had dreamed. 1 year after, Dorothy stood at the way-in to the Morrison Holy Spot Visitor Center, watching as Tribe Old led a group of school kids toward the cave line that had stayed hid for 90 years. The change of the far low spot was awesome, not through work grow, but through respect keep that honored both the nature land and its people big. The visitor center had been made using old native-make ideas with stuff that fit rather than fight with the around wild. Sun boards gave power. Ground heat ways handled warm and cool, and the whole build seemed to grow nature from the land rather than push on it. Native plants around the build, making a smooth change between build and world that would have made Morrison happy. Dorothy called Chief Yazy as he came with the morning C group. The kids are hoping Buster will be there for the nature walk today. She looked toward the field where Buster ate happy, his fur now shiny from good food and usual animal doc care. The donkey had become kind of famous since the tale of his awesome wayfind skills had spread through nature and native rights groups. See, people came from all over hoping to meet the animal whose feels had led to one of the most big people keep finds in New Tens. "I think he'd like that," Dorothy said back, watching Buster lift his head at the sound of kids' voices. He's always been good with young folks. The change in Dorothy's own life had been just as big, though in ways she could never have thought when she'd first bent by a skinny donkey in Miller's feed. Shop. The Morrison Group, made with gives from nature groups and people keep clubs, had paid her as its first boss. Seeing that her rock, know, and deep link to the spot made her one of a kind good to watch the spots keep. Her new job gave money safe she'd never waited. But more big, it gave her life a feel of reason that had been gone since Frank died. Every day brought new C, eager to learn about Morrison's keep past, about native people ways, and about the touchy underworld that work mine would have wrecked forever. The law end had been fast once Fed bosses got in. Dalton Build had faced big pays for doing without right okay and for trying to scare C in a Fed people keep case. Rick Dalton himself had been stopped from doing any mine due on public land for 10 years, really ending his company's grow plans in the area. But the real win had been the make of the Morrison Holy Spot as a forever people keep run together by the Forest Service and tribe bosses. The name kept not just the cave line, but the whole water area that fed the understreams, making sure that the touchy mineral shapes would stay not messed for kids later. "Mrs. Camden," one of the seeing school kids asked as they got ready for the nature walk, "is it true that Buster can find things that people can't spot?" Dorothy smiled, thinking her own doubt just a year back. "Buster has real good feels about the mountain. Animals often spot things that humans miss. Sounds, smells, changes in the world that help them go. But how did he know where to find the treasure?" The ask had been asked hundreds of times by riders, lookers, and Wondersea. Dorothy had made a usual answer that made most happy while keeping some of the secret that made Buster's tale so pull. "I think Buster got something that took me way longer to learn," she said, watching the donkey come to the group with his usual calm pride. "The real treasure wasn't gold or cash. It was finding something good that needed keep. Buster led me to Morrison's signs because he somehow knew they would lead us to something worth saving. The afternoon sea took C through the cave line using careful-made walkways that let get without hurting the shapes. Dorothy never got tired of watching people's faces as they met the underchurch for the first time. The same feel of wow and honor she'd felt that first morning when Buster had led her through Morrison's Hidway Inn. The cave draws stayed the most touch part of the sea with tribe leads saying the spirit big of the dew that had happened in these rooms for lots lines. Morrison's metal box still sat on the stone table where he'd left it, now kept behind show. Good glass, but still seen as proof to one guy's good wake. Jake Morrison could have become very rich from his find, Dorothy said to each C group. Instead, he picked to keep what couldn't be put back. His choice to hide rather than use his find saved not just gold, but a one-of-a-kind bit of people and nature past. As evening came and the day's C left, Dorothy walked with Buster through the field where Morrison's first little house had stood. A small statue now marked the spot, with words that summed the finder's past. He found gold, but picked to save something more good. The Morrison Group's win had gone past everyone's weights. Teach Plans brought thousands of students to the spot each year, teaching them about nature care and people keep. Look teams with schools were noting the cave's one-of-a-kind world, while Old Dig Studies kept to show new get of native do ways. The sad joke wasn't missed on Dorothy. That her 50-cent put in a not-wanted donkey had led to fines worth millions not in pulled money, but in saved past and kept wild. The group's year money went over anything she could have got in her past life, funded by gives from folks who got that some treasures were more good when left in the ground. "You know what the best bit is, Buster?" she said, petting his neck as they watched the sun go behind the tops that had hid Morrison's secret for 90 years. Frank would have loved all this. He always said the mountains had more tales to say than we had time to hear. Her phone made sound with the words from Linda. Saw the PBS show about the Morrison spot. Mom and Dad would be so proud of what you've done. When you're ready for the next trip, there's a tale about left mine-owns in Utah that might grab the group. Dorothy laughed, thinking more trips waiting in the wild, more hid treasures that needed keep rather than using. The work Morrison had began was far from done across the American West. Lots spots stayed easy to hurt from work grow that put money over save. Martha from the office had become a usual helper at the visitor center, sharing her book full know of local past with Hooked C. Tom Bradley had got up in the Forest Service, mostly based on his new way to keep people's spots while keeping people get. Even Jake Miller had got good from the Morrison find. His feed shop now sold Morrison spot keep things and camp stuff to the steady come of sea, giving money good to Millbrook that were last rather than pull. The town that had once teased Dorothy for wasting 50 cents on a skinny donkey now cheered her as their most famous live. As fall colors painted the mountains in shades of gold and red, Dorothy thought on the trip that had brought her to this time. Sad over Frank's die had led her to save Buster, and that simple kind do had showed chances she never could have thought. The morning sad lady who'd felt lost and no reason had become a liked keep person whose work would keep one-of-a-kind treasures for lines to come. But tonight, in this kept low spot, where old do had been done, and where one finder's good brave had made a lasting past, Dorothy felt the deep happy that comes from knowing you've done something that counts. She'd saved a donkey no one wanted and found that sometimes the smallest kind do's lead to the most wow ends. In the getting dark, Buster lifted his head toward the mountains, ready and watching as always. Maybe somewhere in the wild, another hid treasure was waiting for someone smart enough to get that the best rich comes not from what we take from the ground, but from what we pick to keep for those who will follow in our steps. The mountains kept their secrets good, but Dorothy had learned to trust that when the time was right, the right person would always be led to find what needed to be found. And sometimes that person would be led by a 50-cent donkey with smart far past his simple look.